thing I'd like to do is introduce everyone to your first presenter. Her name is Dr. Martha Burns, and as the author of over 100 journal articles and multiple books, neuroscientist Dr. Burns is the leading expert on how children learn. For over 30 years, she has served on the faculty at Northwestern University. I have the pleasure of working with Dr. Burns for over 15 years now, which is really exciting. I get to listen to all of these webinars every year and learn something new and different each time I hear her. So please help me welcome Dr. Martha Burns. I will take you off mute now. And you're...
Okay, well, thank you, and welcome, everybody. I'm delighted to be here with you. As you know from the topic of this in the description, what we're going to be talking about is the fact that many of our children, when they do the summer break over the months over summer, have a little bit of a downward achievement level in their reading. Their academics slip a little bit over the summer, and we're going to be talking about ways to prevent. All summer is a wonderful time. If you have a child that needs a little help in reading, get in there and really work with your child, give them something to do that they believe is a computer game or a video game often is helpful. It doesn't have to be a tutor or a teacher. You can still be a mom or a dad. But it keeps their reading skills good and actually improves their reading skills. So that's what I'm going to be talking about for the next 20 minutes or so. I'm going to be coming at it from the perspective of neuroscience, which you see here in the upper right-hand corner, which is an understanding of how the brain reads. And I'm not going to get too technical in that, but I will kind of explain that to you. And then why some children may need help with their reading, why reading doesn't come as naturally for some children as it does for others. I use science of learning, and I borrowed this term from the journal Science, which is one of the most respected scientific journals. It has the highest criteria, most stringent criteria for accepting research, and a special edition on what they called the new, special issue, I should say, on what they called the new Science of Learning a few years ago. The new learning includes, in the lower right-hand corner, of course, teaching children how to read. So reading is a skill that for most individuals has to be taught. It is not a skill that is necessarily, I'm going to close so we're getting a click every time. I'm just going to close Outlook there. Reading, we have to teach children to talk. We don't have to teach children to walk. But reading is a skill that does require teaching. For the 99% of children don't acquire reading on their own. So, of course, we need education. And psychologists help us to understand children's strengths and weaknesses in terms of the underlying capacities necessary for reading. And I'll talk a little bit about that, too. Talking about the research, 10, 15 years old, on understanding how the brain reads, and we can drive the brain, the human brain, which is experience dependent. It builds itself based on the experiences it has. How we can utilize that natural capacity to build the brain through technology, which is in the lower left-hand corner, and to give your kids a real boost over the summer in their reading skills. Get started. Let's just talk about the areas of the brain that are important for reading. This hemisphere of the brain you're looking at now, and it's divided into what we call Brodmann's areas. Brodmann was a neuroanatomist around 1910 who spent years and years and years mapping out the brain based on the cell structure of the cortex. And his map is so accurate that it's still used today, over 100 years later. And neurologists use it, and neurosurgeons use it. It's very helpful to talk about it, and I like this particular image because it's in color, and I see numbers, and I can refer to those numbers for you to help you to understand. Parts of the brain that are important for reading are in the back 2/3 of the brain, and back 2/3 of the brain are the sensory parts of the brain, and those turquoise and blue light green, orange. So everything behind the big line separates the pink from the green area. Green area has a number 3, 1 in it. Everything behind that and underneath the line that divides the brain from top to bottom is sensory. It's getting information in from the environment. And the job of those sensory lobes of the brain, we have the parietal lobe at the area 312 and 40 and 7 and 39 are all part of the parietal lobe. We have the which gets information in from our bodies. We have the occipital lobe. You see this area is 19, 18, 17. That gets information in from our vision. And the temporal lobe, there's 41, 42, 22, and then those light blue areas, 37, 21. That's all getting information in from our ears. So the brain is the organ of the body that helps us to know what's going on in the world around us and to be able to process that information through our eyes, through our ears, and through our body. That's pink and yellow. The brain is the frontal lobe, and that allows us to act on the world and to get the things that we want and to do the things that we want. Anything that has an ing associated with it, if a human does it, that's being done in the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe for walking and thinking and solving problems and reading and mathematics. So the frontal lobe is the doing part of our brain, allows us, as I said, to act on the world around us. So for reading, then, 2 senses that we need, the 2 sensations we need are, and we have to tie what we see, the letters and the words, to sounds of our language, because English is what we call an alphabetic language, meaning English is a language where we have an alphabet and the letters represent sounds or phonemes. So if I see the letter B, I know it makes the sound B, and if I see the letter T, I know it makes the sound T, and so on. There are languages that are not alphabetic, like some of the Asian languages, like Mandarin Chinese is not alphabetic, but all languages are, and so is French and Spanish and German and most of the Germanic languages and Slovakian languages that we speak. So what we do then is connect. We have to integrate the information that comes in through our eyes with the information that comes in through our ears. Information that's coming in through our eyes is going first area 17, that little tip of the occipital lobe in the back of the brain, and that's going to be perceived area 19. If it's a word, it's going to be perceived at the very bottom of area 19. That's called the visual word form area. It's going to be perceived as a letter or a word. That information has to be integrated with sound, and sound is going to come into area 41 in the temporal lobe, and then it's going to be passed through orange areas, which are going to attach meaning, and areas know to listen for a b or a p or a d, or a vowel like an e or an or an ah, and figure out what that is, and then it's integrated in area 40 and 39. So area 40 and 39 take that information, they tune the sound with the letter, and they carry it forward to area 44 and 45, lighting up area 44 and 45 because it's so important that we use it. So child, when first learning to read, sounds to learn, and then words to listen and sounds to meaning, and integrates all of that and sends it forward to use it. And they use it at first just to sound out the words and figure out the words, what the words are. But by about the 3rd grade to 4th grade, we expect students to start reading to learn. So using area 44 and 45, not just to read, but also to learn from what they've read. So regions that are important for reading. And all our children have those regions well developed. There's not really a problem with neurons being there. But over time, what happens is they have to connect with each other, and they'll have to become mapped for whatever language you are planning to read, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. Let's talk first about how the areas connect to each other. So when you see those distributed regions of the brain with those different numbers, we want them working together to do different kinds of tasks. And the way that they work together is this neuronal communication system you see here. So looking at the very bottom, you see a blood vessel. You can see it's labeled blood vessel, and you see some little cells that look like stars, and they're actually called astrocytes, and astro means star. So they're star-shaped cells that are going to deliver nutrients like the nutrients from the food we eat and oxygen to neurons. And you see 3 blue neurons in this picture. Neurons are like my hand. The palm of my hand is the cell body. That's the round part of the cell that you see where all the work of the cell goes on. Neurons also have little fingers that stick out that connect to each other and connect to the long arms of the neuron that we call axons. And it's kind of easy to remember that the axons are the long arms because they both start with an A. And the axons send information from one neuron to another, and the dendrites pick the information up. Well, and so this is how neurons communicate across the brain and wire themselves together. And the right-hand corner in the inset, what you can see is that above the neuron, which is top bump you see there in the little inset with the little bubbles in it, it's these little bubbles that are called synaptic vesicles, and they hold neuromodulators, little chemicals. And when the neuron fires, it releases those chemicals. It's like squeezing an orange and crushing the pulp, and the juice comes out. Well, in this, you squeeze the tip of an axon, and those little chemicals come out and are received by dendrite, or the fingers of the receiving cell, and they carry the information to that cell body, which then takes it on to another cell. The reason I'm going to all the trouble to explain this to you is that this is all experience dependent. That's the word we use. So the way the brain builds up these highway systems, these communication systems, is through experience. And the more experience the brain has in a specific area, the better it's at relaying that kind of information. So one of the keys to getting our children to be readers is giving them situations where they can read a lot, and they enjoy the reading process. And some difficulties with reading, one of the keys is to figure out where in this communication system they're down, because it's like a cell phone network. If you're out of the range of the cell tower, it doesn't matter how good of a smartphone you have, people aren't going to be able to understand you. Your message is going to break up. And the thing happens in the brain. So if we can find out where that signal is breaking up, we really work on the skills that the child needs to be more effective at reading, and then give them opportunities to read a lot. And if we do that over the summer, we can really improve a child's ability to do well when they go back to school in the fall. This is an article or a special issue of the journal Science, in this case, Nature Science, that was devoted entirely to how the brain's white matter, the paving of the communication system, the paving of the long arms, the highways, the information, is dependent on experience. And we did that over the last 5 to 6 years. And see, this was published in 2010, and we've just started to realize how important experience is to driving these communication systems of the brain and making the brain good at some things that we want it to be good at. It's what the communication highways look like. It's the brain of an adult, and these are not all the highways. These are just some of the important highways. But we had technology that became available around 2005, just about 10 years ago, that allowed us to actually see some of these major highways very easily, and to see how well paved they are, how good they are, how thick the myelin is, and how good that is for carrying information. And the big blue highway that you see in the middle here, It is one of the major highways that's really important for reading. It has the name superior longitudinal fasciculus, but all that means it's just Latin for the top long fiber tract. So that top long fiber tract develops during the school years. It gets thicker and thicker and thicker based on the experiences that a child has. And so the key here, and it's very important for reading, I should add, because it links the word form area, visual part of the brain, to the auditory sound form area, if you will, in the hearing part of the brain, to the integration area that we talked about, and carries it all forward to the frontal lobe to use. So you can think of this as one of the major reading highways that teachers build and that we want to exercise. We want children to use and to practice as much as we can on their own, and certainly over the summer. We don't want 3 months rather, of them not using this very important part of the brain. Let's look at the reading brain. You can see these are what we call fMRIs. So you're actually now looking at the brain at work with functional imaging. You just lie in an MRI machine and you take a picture of the brain when it's doing something like reading, and that's what you're looking at. In the left-hand corner, you can see the brain of a young reader. You can see at this left hemisphere, and you get that little butterfly. It's a little hard to see, but that little butterfly in the back part of the brain there is the integration area for linking sound to vision. So this young reader is doing is we call decoding, sounding out words. And it would be something like this if you were sitting with them. It's probably a 6-year-old or 7-year-old going, the cat is running to the house. The cat is running to the house. That child is really decoding. They're working hard on sounding out the letters and the words and figuring out what's going on. That slows them down. It's not very efficient. When you look at the adult reader, you see that area of the brain isn't as active as the frontal lobe, because an adult reader, we don't have to do all of that decode very often, unless it's a new word we haven't seen before, a character's name we've never seen. So what we actually do is use our frontal lobe, the doing part of the brain, to loud quickly and easily, and to the whole sentence out or the whole paragraph out, and to kind of be extracting meaning in a faster, more efficient way. Now that tells us, when you see the frontal lobe light up like that in the adult reader, is that the highways have been very well paved. So it's very efficient at reading. Reading is easy and effortless, and we learn from it. You get the book that someone gets better and better at reading. There's more of their left hemisphere, and where you see that decent inactivity is in the lower right-hand corner. That's the right hemisphere. Right hemisphere does a lot of guessing at words. If it sees the word house, it might try to sit out as horse, or it might try to sound it out hose. And it just go quickly to try to guess at what that word is. As opposed to the left hemisphere, that's going to all the details and try to figure it out based on the details. So the way teachers build for reading and math is this blue highway that we looked before, the superior longitudinal fasciculus, and it is going to reach its maximum maturity, and you see that in the right-hand corner there. It says A, which actually stands for fraction anisotropy, which you don't need to know, but it just means it's going to be maximally myelinated from about 15 to 17 years of age. And you can see on the graph that it's starting when students are 5, when they start school, and that's when it really builds. So it corresponds beautifully to understanding of how reading is learned and what teachers do. But teachers also build those chemicals I showed you. Those chemicals are released between one neuron and another. Those chemicals help students to pay attention. They help them to respond to the novelty and the joy of the learning process, if they reward them when they get it right, without that those neuromodulators can be built in to technology. So we can have developed technological programs, we'll be talking about those in a few minutes, like the Fast ForWord programs, that are designed to maintain the students' attention, have novel kinds of games that they do so it's fun for them and entertaining, and reward them constantly in a very timely way so that we're building these brain structures and the highways very efficiently. And that's how technology can really help. So well-designed neuroscience technologies build in exercises, exercise these underlying skills. I call them the reading capacities that are essential for academic success. Also promote life skills like the ability to pay attention and the ability to learn on demand. As a matter, we have research that shows that if you just exercise attention and something called working memory, not just short-term memory, but the ability to learn by memorizing, and showed that students follow classroom rules better, they have better regulation of their emotions, they can sit still, and they can learn on demand. So during summer, we can build these capacities. Now, you know if your child needs brain boosting or to sit with you about an hour a day and read. Well, child tunes out a little bit. They say a lot. They have an attention problem, and we can build that into the computer activities and exercise that over the summer. If problems learning, or if they had problems learning facts, math facts, or the alphabet, or letter sounds, or were never interested in learning nursery rhymes, they have a working memory problem, can exercise that over the summer. They can doubt words, then can build up those processing skills. And if they have trouble with grammar, ever did, learning to read something like was, and they read it backwards as saw, or if they had trouble learning, verb tenses and things like that, this kind of technological program can be very helpful. How does a child look in the classroom if they're having some of these underlying cognitive issues? Well, they'd be real slow on multiple choice tests. That's a good child. No material, but they keep rereading it over and over again, and so they answer slowly. That'd be a memory problem, be an attention problem. Same as if they reread passages from homework over and over. Trouble memorizing activities like history dates could be a sign. Take longer to complete homework than other children. Could be a memory or an attention problem. Have trouble of words sometimes, or have trouble spelling. And so those signs would tell your child might need a boost. And summertime is the perfect time to give them the boost. There are two ways to do it. One is to build the underlying cognitive skills. That's the ForWord program. Or just give them more practice with corrective reading, where they read and if they make a mistake, the computer corrects them, and that's called reading assistant. The child's having a little difficulty with the underlying skills. We know research at Stanford that it takes about 6 weeks if they do 100 minutes a day, change the brain from what you see on the right, which is the brain of dyslexics doing phonological awareness tests, compared to normal readers. These were second graders, 35, 7-year-olds. 6 weeks later, just using this kind of technology called Fast ForWord, the brain is lighted up. They were there, they were functioning, but they weren't well mapped, and they weren't well functioning before, and they weren't connected together. After just 6 weeks, you can really get that intervention to work. So these are what the exercises look like. You can see here that they work on things like speech sound discrimination. At the upper left-hand corner, you see a student might have to listen to for it as bass or B. They might have to listen to grammatical structures like boy is working with his father, the boy is working is his father. You can read exercises. You can see where they're matching words that sound alike, or synonyms or antonyms. That's the second one down from the top on the right. You work on comprehension. That's the middle picture. You can work recognition of words. So all of this can be incorporated in exercises the students do every day. Sometimes the exercises are just helping these underlying skills like basic cognition and basic understanding of sentence structure. The boy who is crying is holding his mom, for example. It can be even more advanced with reading. This is a paraphrasing task where the student looks at sentences of sentence. The blushing butcher is bashful when he asks the brilliant chemistry teacher on a date. And what you can see before is he's got to figure out what are the two components of that, which would mean the same thing, a paraphrase. And you can even get high level where you're actually working on the ability of a student to formulate a story from paragraphs where they have to order them and sequence them. So let's go to Wendy, and she'll talk about how her child used this and talk about her experience with it.
Thank you, Burns. And our next presenter today is Wendy Burns, and she's the homeschooling mother of two girls, Haley, age 12, and Devin, age 9. She's also the program manager and one of the co-writers of Move With Me Yoga Adventures, award-winning 9-story movement and mindfulness CD series and preschool curriculum. She's a graduate of the United States Naval Academy and a veteran with 8 years of experience as a U.S. naval officer. She then resigned her commission in 2001 and became a movement education specialist, and has 12 years of experience in private practice and 8 years guiding children and conducting workshops in movement education. Please help me welcome Wendy.
Can you hear me?
I can. Feel free to proceed.
Right. Well, that was a great intro. Thank you. If you were from that, you might have recognized that my child that I early on recognized it was going to have some learning challenges, behavioral challenges, which kind of go together. So the evolution from a naval officer into healthcare for children and movement education was because I had a child who really needed it. So throughout years, and she was 3 years Montessori, went to public school. She's very bright, can memorize anything, so was able to compensate very well. But by second grade, if a child is not reading, it starts to really impact their ability to do everything, with math or science or reading itself. So her incredible memory skills were no longer able to support her. And so I was already reading different ways and had run across this program and knew I needed to do more of my own work with her, and I needed to find help. So I talked to other parents because I was lucky enough to be in Louisiana, where Fast ForWord was offered in the public school system for half an hour a day for students who qualified, and a summer intensive, which I remember correctly was 3 hours a day for 6 weeks. And I'm very anti-technology, so it took a lot of convincing for me, this program. But I decided not to do the 3 hours a day in the summer, and was by then deciding to homeschool. But through the testimony of other parents of how successful the program had been for them, that I decided to do it. And in third grade, when I started the program at home, an hour a day, easy to see how hard for her, for the big level of the auditory processing that the program starts at for kids like my child. And it's just sound sweeps. And you tell the sound goes high, you tell the sound low. But the fun of the program just dragged her right through. She really loved her half an hour a day of doing all these different exercises that just had to do auditory processing. And it quickly advances into very basic reading skills, also based on those same principles. And within 3 months, she's reading, and I'm going to say within 4 or 5 months, she's reading at grade level. So it's a difference from a child who had all kinds of exposure to reading, just from reading those the ones that she needed to hear that were then related to visual and reading. So we've had great support. We were assigned doing the program for home base, mentor or a counselor, and they monitor the program. They make that your child is advancing. They hit a plateau. They offer solutions, even other programs that might be entertaining or enhancing for them to get them past that plateau. On every level, the themselves are entertaining, the daughter's enjoyment of it, and obviously the success of the program for my family has kept me in it for 3 years. So we took 1 year off. I turned to it for 6th grade. She's now a 6th grader. She reads like the wind, doing extremely well in school, and she continues to have some of the same learning challenges, but the audacity, that's the right word, the foundational knowledge that she gains from the program has allowed you to stop grammar and the spelling becomes part of the program, and to work on comprehension. It's made an incredible difference for my child, and I highly recommend it.
Thank you. And let's go over to Lynn, who will do a final portion of our presentation today. I've taken you off mute, Lynn, and I'm going to move the slide ahead here. And I'd like to officially introduce Lynn to everybody. She's been with Scientific Learning now since March of 2012 and worked at length with teachers, schools, and programs, and is the mother of 10. She has previous experience in relationship partner sales in the software industry. So please help me welcome Lynn.
Thank you, Sherry. Oh, and thank you, Wendy. I just love to hear your story. Wendy is one of the families that I have worked with. It's always a pleasure to see how the children have progressed, not only while they're on the program, but after they've completed the program. You know, we talk about the ability to create these connections and how these connections will last for your child for the rest of their educational career. BrainPro itself is a service, as Wendy was stating, a service that combines the powerful Fast ForWord program with your own individualized consultant or tutor. And the person is going to work with your family weekly. Every week you'll receive very detailed reports. In addition to those reports, you'll also see a weekly phone call that will talk to you about your child's progress. And as Wendy stated, the child, if they plateau, we'll give you tips or other areas that you can work on to get through those difficult times. Fast ForWord is a piece of a puzzle. We are the solution. We are the training of the brain so the child can continue to advance academically. And the subject of this webinar is about this summer. And we think about what happens to our kids over this summer. The majority of kids are going to lose about 2.5 months at least of summer. We've got 4% on the standardized test from the beginning of the summer to the end of the summer. So they're increasing the standardized test, but they're also losing ground educationally. To quote one of my coworkers, Laura, who is a teacher who spent time in Louisiana as well, teaching in schools that have the Fast ForWord program, she would typically spend the first 4 to 6 weeks reaching what the children had learned the previous year. So we know as parents, we see this with our kids, but teachers presenting in the classroom having lost quite a bit of ground, this is really challenging. One of the best times to keep them moving forward is summer. The Fast ForWord program itself for use at home is 4 months. The things we talked about is starting when school is ramping down. You know, we know that at the end of the year, a lot of kids are going to have less work. You can begin with your children, say in May or June, and work with them right through when they go back to school. So help improve the reading by building those cognitive skills that Dr. Burns talked about. And in a fun and engaging way that Wendy has seen with her own children. The really wonderful things now is we are available on the iPad, and we know based on our research that children typically will stay engaged for a longer period of time while on the iPad itself. That is such an amazing combination of not only the neuroscience, technology. I mean, and we want to stay forefront in all the technology because, again, we know this is what's going to be keeping your kids engaged. And taking that total comprehensive approach by working on all those underlying skills. We want to build that foundation. We want to create a stable platform, if you want to refer to it that way, for the kids, and then up from there. We know once we get all of these things, and we call it wiring and firing, wire together, fire together, all those neuron connections that we create to stay with the child for their educational career. These are enduring gains, they last, so we're not putting a Band-Aid on a problem. And just a little further talk about the Band-Aid, we know that kids will get great accommodations at school. They're going to give them more time to do things. They're going to provide more one-on-one direction. They're going to maybe perhaps let them have regularly. The Band-Aid, talking about fix those underlying issues, those type of special accommodations are needed. And again, the Fast ForWord program itself, we've been around a very long time. We continue with our research. We wonder that we are hitting those areas in the brain that we need to correct. And it's super simple to use. It's a minimum of 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day. Over the summer, we can increase that time so your child does have a more intense use. And position it as a 4-month block of time. Typically, kids can finish their level of the program in that 4 months. Being that it's subscription-based, we have to get through as much as possible in the time period. You'll be assigned to work with a weekly consultant. Every week, we'll send you reports. But more importantly, they're there to answer any questions you may have, and they're there to guide you through the program because we want the most successful outcome for your child as possible. It's my pleasure to work with the Brain Pro program and all of the wonderful families that we get to interact with. And our consultants are just as passionate about the program as well, about really doing something impactful for your program this summer, about the issues that you see with your child, and do you feel that this is a program that can really address those underlying skills that they struggle with. Example of the characters that your child will interact while they're on the program. On the left-hand side, we've got the language series, so you can engage in characters for that particular age group. On the right-hand side, we have the literacy series that is for middle through high school. We've improved the graphics to make them a little bit more mature so that children don't mind interacting with the program as well. We have a wonderful Brain Pro website. We have just really completed a very testimonial page. I don't see the tab here, but please go to the page, Read Parent Testimonials. Here we go. Thank you so much, Carrie. Like Wendy said, she looked for testimonials before she made the decision to take on the program. We have parent testimonials. We also have a wonderful video that's available as well. And me as a parent, a mom of 10, I know where I want to get my bang for my buck. And if I'm going to be doing a program, I want to make sure that it's research-based. And we've got parents who are willing to back the results as well. And again, that's why I thank Wendy so much. It's been a pleasure working with her and her family. And I think testimonials are probably the most powerful things that do help us as parents make choices for our kids. So we can obviously dial the number on the screen. You can also log into that Brain Pro Learning website and fill out a form, and we'll be more than happy to contact you as quickly as possible. Thank you everyone for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I turn it back over to Carrie.
Hey, thank you, Lynn. And I would like to see if there's anybody with any questions. The first question that came in, and this might be good for Lynn and or Dr. Burns, and I'll take Dr. Burns off mute here. Which students would be best to run through the Fast ForWord/Brain Pro program in terms of diagnoses, or better diagnoses than others that see better success? I don't know if Dr. Burns wants to address this or if Lynn wants to address this.
Probably Lynn can address it because she knows the students that she usually thinks do best with Brain Pro.
Thank you, Darren. We see an awful lot of children who an auditory processing diagnosis as we are working on those very specific skills, and there's a lot of research that's part of our program addresses those issues. Typically also children who might have ADD, who also might have ADHD, because we do improve their ability to have that sustained and focused attention. And we work a lot with kids who are, I would say, elementary age, My biggest area that I've been increased with are high school students. Think about your high school child who might now facing the anticipation of doing some college exams or things of that nature, where they have to take longer tests and stay focused more and really be able to interact, in a timed fashion.
Next question is, gosh, we're getting a lot of questions here. I wanted to find out also, Mr. Burns, just from your own personal experience, someone is asking, what results have you seen using the software? Mr. Burns. Oh, sorry about that.
No problem. Personally, I have a private practice, and I was the original research trial with Fast ForWord. So I've been using Fast ForWord products and Reading Assistant, but Fast ForWord products for about 7 years now, since 1997. I've used it with sorts of students with auditory processing problems, but also students who are behind in school. I've used it with children on the autism spectrum, and I've used it with students who have dyslexia. And it is, I would say, the overreaching comment I can make is it's very fast and enduring change. So I often do therapy with students, especially if they have dyslexia, do interventions with them to really help them. If they have language problems, I'll do language therapy with them. What ForWord does is make my therapy go faster, and it gives them a huge boost in a short period of time. I can sometimes get, the average improvement in reading comprehension is about a year and a half if you do one of the more intensive protocols, like the 100-minute, 5-day-a-week protocol. You can get a year and a half gain in reading skills over the summer. So I would say that is the average, and I've had a few students who didn't benefit from it. In all the years I've used it, I've probably run 500, 600 students through other, and those were students, a couple students had emotional issues, and we needed to really address those emotional issues. One out came from a home where the father was incarcerated, for example, but 99% of students made tremendous gains from this, and it's very helpful in the summer because they can go back to school and be ahead of the curve.
Okay, and this is probably going to be for Dr. Burns and or Lynn, so I'll keep you both off mute. The age of the child to start the program play a factor of the success in the results and to achieve these successful results.
I'll turn it over to Lynn. The program was designed initially for ages 7 to adult. We now have an iPad and Chrome version that can be used with even younger students, or you can use it with younger children if they have a little bit more direct supervision, and the Brain Pro Professional can really help you with that. So I would say 5 to adult is the age range, and it doesn't matter. The brain is plastic. If you remember that big blue finger track, the brain is experience dependent from 5 of age until about 17 or 18 years of age. So that is an age range where you can have dramatic results with neuroscience-based interventions.
And then, Lynn, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Dr. Burns covered that perfectly. Thank you so much.
Okay, next question, and this one is for Dr. Burns. The question is, this daughter completed Fast ForWord while in primary school. What program can she move on to after she might have done, say, Fast ForWord language? She's older, so.
Yeah, so she can't, depending upon what her issues are, and again, somebody like Lynn could really help you with that. So could a Brain Pro Professional to what's going on. Sometimes what I'll do as a student gets older is put the Fast ForWord Literacy, which is an adolescent version of language, gives them kind of a review of that and a boost, and then have them move on. There are 7 more programs they could do, technically, if you needed to, which would be Literacy Advanced, and there are reading programs, probably for a student that's a little older, reading 3, reading 4, reading 5, and then perhaps reading assistant after that to have the corrective reading.
And question is, and this one's for you, Dr. Burns, my child has autism and ADHD. They tried CogMed last summer and didn't see any results from that. Was Brain Pro different from CogMed, and have you had any children who showed only marginal or no improvement?
Okay, CogMed is an excellent program for ADHD. It really, there isn't much data on autism spectrum disorders with CogMed. It was designed and tested primarily initially with ADHD. It's also been used, there's an adult version that can be used for injury and other kinds of issues too. The problem with CogMed for a child on the autism spectrum is it's pretty difficult and can be frustrating. Fast ForWord, on the other hand, is designed for the underlying language and auditory processing disorders that we see associated with autism spectrum disorder. We have nice research that was done by Nicole Russo and summarized in a paper it was published independently, and some in a paper by Nina Kraus on the value of Fast ForWord with autism spectrum disorder, especially the auditory processing component of autism spectrum disorders. It is a visual processing, visual working memory program. ForWord programs are auditory, so they really get at the listening skills, the language skills, and the auditory processing skills. I had students that didn't benefit from Fast ForWord. Yes, as I said, some probably 500 or 600 students that used it in my entire career. I've only had 2 or 3 that didn't benefit, and those students had some emotional behavioral problems needed to be addressed first. But if you don't have that, ForWord can be extraordinarily effective. Now, it's going to vary. Some students make 6 months gains in a month or 2 of the use of the program. Some students make 2 or 3 years gains, so the average is 1.5 years in reading. But that's still a nice big jump for most of the children that I work with.
Okay, and then Wendy, this question came in for you. Exactly which of the programs has your daughter used?
I started out with, we're Brain Pro, specifically because we're homeschoolers. So we started out on the most basic level. It is all the way through level 4 now of the programming. So when you first start, it's just sound sweeps, and then it starts with individual words or phonetics, and then it goes to full reading. And in level 4, she's actually working on grammar skills, like word disease, when do you italicize for a book title, when do you put, she does things in her level 4 that I had on automatic. I do sit with her because when they hit a plateau, sometimes because it's an area that's difficult, and they just help to remain focused on it. And she knows more than I do in some cases. And I am obviously a college graduate, so we've pretty much done the whole spectrum up into level 4, which is 4th to 6th. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lynn.
And how old is she? Again, which daughter?
She is 12. This is my 12-year-old. Yeah.
Great. Okay, and let's see if there are any other questions. I want to put out one more time if you want to send us any additional questions. Have we ever heard of, and this one will be for you, Dr. Burns, I'll take you off mute. Have you ever heard of the Alexia program and the differences between our program and their program?
Yes, I know Alexia quite well, and I'm actually working with a young girl right now who has apraxia of speech. I'm consulting with her. She is using Alexia. Alexia is an Orton Gillingham-based reading program. It is a decoding program. So it uses the Orton Gillingham structure, which is a very organized way of teaching sounds and the letters that go with the sounds of English. And there's a very strict progression you go through, and Alexia takes a student through that. So Alexia is a program that teaches and exercises decoding. For that, it's valuable for students who have problems with decoding. Lexia does not get at underlying auditory processing issues. It doesn't get at underlying attentional issues. It doesn't address working memory issues. It doesn't address processing speed or language. So it is targeted Orton Gillingham decoding program and good at what it's designed for.
Burns, and let's see here. There are two more questions. How long does it take to go through the entire program? Lynn, I'm going to take you off mute with this question.
Help is individually adaptive, so your child will move through it really based on their own skills and abilities. One of the reasons we do position it in a 4-month subscription base is that a lot of children are able to get through their own level of the program. So for elementary age, there would be 2 parts, and then through middle to high school, it would all be 2 parts. 2 parts I'm referencing are the foundational skills. Now, as Wendy has stated, her daughter is now doing the multiple reading levels. So average, what we see is between 4 and 6 months time.
And then the last question is that I got, well, actually 2 more questions. Someone was in and said they have a reluctant 16-year-old who is receptive to intense program. How would they explain this opportunity? So I'll give that to you to start with.
And how old did you say, Carrie?
16.
16. I will just go on my own experience. My 16-year-old son did the program last summer. He did a very intensive version in which we were doing nights a day. He did the literacy advanced, and 2 reading levels, and he was extremely reluctant. He's also a gamer. So it's kind of my favorite targeted audience when I talk to families who have kids with teens. I put it in an opportunity to help him do better in school, make things easier for him so he wasn't struggling long to do the things that were required. Also, his executive function skills were very, very poor. Now, do you start out on the program saying, yippee, I just can't wait to begin Fast ForWord? Absolutely not. But typically with older children, you have a very frank conversation with them and explain the outcome. A lot of times you get the buy-in. And I always tell my parents and teens, get buy-in. Now, I'll tell you another thing, as a mom of multiple teens, also know their currency. And what I mean by that is, what would help to motivate them? Because we know this is what these kids need. And as a parent, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure I'm putting the right program in front of my child and making sure he has the right outcome. So how he had certain items that he would like to earn by doing them over the summer. And I was more than happy to go ahead and set up a little reward system for him. And as he completed it, did well. It's all about having very frank and open conversations, especially with this age group. That's one of my that I talk to all of my parents and teens about, is get them on board in the beginning. And it doesn't mean they're going to stay on board the whole time. So what do we do to keep them motivated?
Lynn, and then the last 2 questions that I got were, is this compatible with the Android phones or tablets or smartphones? Answer is currently no. We are compatible with the iPad. And then the other question is, this can be done at home as opposed to a learning center environment, and that is true. So if you want more information, free to email us at webinars@signlearn.com. And then there's for Wendy that I'll email when after the session with your question. And if there's no other questions, I am going to just thank all of our presenters today. We've got Dr. Burns, Lynn, and Wendy. Really appreciate all the time today, and thank you, our attendees, for joining us today. If you have additional questions after the webinar, please email me at webinars@signlearn.com, and I can get back to you soon. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.